Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash, the honored smell, the apostles, great millstone, peace and salutations, the hopeful members of the elect, La Bacharium, the house of David, that's been preordained, predestined to get delivered in these last end times and to be the ruling, governing body of the nation, Yashala. I want to get into a lesson. All right, this is why Iran was always the plan with filmmaker Ryan Dawson. Okay, now Ryan Dawson is like a whistleblower. This is from Propaganda and Co, by the way, and I was listening to a little bit of this, all right, and he was going in on Israel and how Israel is the problem, all right, because they are the problem of the world. Are these elites? They're Amalekites, okay? Israel, those people in Israel today, they're Amalekites, Edomites, the head tribe, Esau, Edom, all right? The international banking families, they go back to Amalek, okay? And they are the main cause, the main problem of the earth. Every problem you can think of, it all goes back to them, all right? They cause it, okay? So I'm gonna play this video. All right, I forgot, what mark I was listening to earlier, but either way, he says some real informative things. All right, so I'm gonna play this video and I'm gonna get some scriptures. All right, so let's go.
What they do is divert more resources to the Israeli theater because they don't really need Ukraine so much anymore because Syria has been toppled. And that was the whole point. Like, Russia is tied up. They can't support Syria or Iran as they allowed al-Qaeda, Giuliani, to destroy Syria and murder Christians and Alawites and other Muslims. And that's what they've done. They have a fucking al-Qaeda runs Syria now, and they're allowing Israel to use their airspace. And all these, like, Salafist Sunnis are like, oh, Assad, he doesn't do anything when Israel, periodically bombs the Damascus airport or something. Like, what would you like him to do? Go to war with Israel too? He can barely handle what he has on his plate. But then Al-Qaeda comes in and they destroyed all of Syria's air defenses, within days, because they just let them have it. They took Mount Hermon, they annexed southern Syria, they cut off all access between Iran and Hezbollah will now wither on the vine. And so next on their script was Iran. And it's not just some coincidence that right after they finally get rid of Syria, that now Iran's 5 minutes away from nuclear bomb. Bullshit.
Right. So he was talking about how they destabilized Syria. All right. All this is planned. All right. They set up coups and they destabilize those countries in the Middle East, so-called Middle East, all right, in West Asia. Okay, Israel wants access to majority of those lands, just like we see going on in the Gaza Strip. They're committing genocide on those people because they want that area, they want that land. Okay, it's a profit.
Tulsi Gabbard went in and saw that they don't have the capacity. They're not spinning centrifuges to make this uranium-235. They know the American public's too ignorant to understand the process of building a nuclear weapon. They don't know the difference between 90% and 20% and 3%. And they did agree with Witkoff, who's not an honest broker. They said, okay, we'll go down to 3.6%, which just, keeps the billions of dollars they've already sunk in afloat, at least for energy. And, oh no, the Israelis want it to be zero. So Witkoff does agree, and then goes and he talks to his real puppeteers, which is the Israelis, and they said yes. Well, then raise the bar, say zero.
Right.
And tell them to get rid of ballistic missiles and this and this and this.
Witkoff was taking meetings with the Mossad hours before meeting with them, in Rome and in Oman, just like, why would you even meet with the Mossad at all? Like, well, why is that a normal thing?
Well, yeah, obviously. And I'll tell you, all they were really doing for the 3.6%, which they were never...
Stephen Charles Witkoff is an American lawyer and real estate investor who has served as the United States Special Envoy to the Middle East and Special Envoy for Peace Missions since 2025. This is who they're talking about. Okay. See if I can get just a little more information. He's the founder and chairman of the Witkoff Group, a real estate development firm. Okay, let's continue.
Really agreeing to. It was just something they said to get inspectors in, and they were using the IAEA to spy on Iran to figure out the locations of their, not only the nuclear facilities, but the scientists. And then they went in on a preemptive strike and murdered the scientists. They murdered nuclear scientists and generals, and they knew exactly what they're dealing with. It reminds me of, my brother brought up an analogy like what they did to American Indians, sending in a wagon of supplies so they could count how many people there were, how many male fighting age, what weapons
like
they had.
Trojan horse.
It was like a Trojan horse, exactly. And it's just...
And I just want to say, Iran plays a special role in end-time prophecy correlating to World War III. Once they fully touch Iran, all right, because right now you see these skirmishes, okay? Missile firing here and there. But once they really do damage, Russia will step in. Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. Actually, let me get that. Okay? And you see Israel, what the world is finding out, that certain people that are not in the know, now a lot of people are waking up. They're starting to realize that Israel is the source of all these problems. Okay? These wars, all right, in the so-called Middle East. A lot of it goes back to, the main cause is Israel, okay? They want those areas, okay? And America is a puppet for Israel. A lot of our tax-paying dollars go to Israel. A lot of those Israelis don't even have to work. Okay? This is Ezekiel 38, verse 1, or verse 2. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them. That's the land of Russia. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen. The Lord's going to turn Russia back into that USSR state again, all right? That mindset, okay? And that's why you see what's going on in Ukraine. Russia wants that area back. They're like, hold on, you guys should have never departed, okay? You were once part of Russia, the Soviet Union, okay? All of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, investing more into the military might, okay? Persia, which was changed to Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, going to Turkey, and all his bands and people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Russia is going to be a guard unto these nations that I just named. The biggest is Iran, okay? So we're seeing like the prelude to World War III. We're seeing, these little skirmishes that you see, Israel and Iran, and it stopped. That's only for a moment, okay? Sooner or later it's going to pick back up. All right, but before it has to be the mandation, the RFID chip, and then after that, World War III will just pop off. Okay, full-fledged World War III.
They go in, they use nuclear inspectors to spy on Iran and understand the capacity, the depth, how far under the ground things are, find out where people live and murder them in their houses. And they'd done this before. They used Stuxnet before. They'd murdered scientists before. I just
want to say one more thing too, and again, those wars going on in the Middle East that you've seen in the past, all right, some of them that America went in, Afghanistan, Iraq, okay, also because it's all under the same coalition, Edomites, all right? These elites, they control all these different nations, but they want the resources, okay? They want the resources, all right? But again, Israel is the main problem. When you really look into it, okay? When you actually go deep into it, that's why I like watching Myron Gaines. He'll go deep into all that, all right? They're like the main source, okay? the main source of the problem.
Where they'd use proxies before, like MEK and Jandala and even some Azeris, to murder people within Iran. They had agents inside. They had drones take out air defense systems, and they knew where everything was because they had allowed a team of spies from the IAEA, which can never be trusted again. How can you ever allow the International Atomic Energy Agency in when all they were doing is acting as spies for Israel? Yeah. That's disgusting. So, like, there was no deal. There was just, an excuse to get people inside so they could bomb them. They knew they didn't have a weapon. The real thing is they don't like that Iran supports what they'll call proxies, they're terrorists, whatever, the Houthi and Hezbollah. And you got to understand, like, those factions are reactions to Israeli regression in the first place. Hamas, too. Hamas and Hezbollah did not exist until the 1980s. And Israel's been occupying Palestine since 1948 and had a series of wars, all of which they started, not only in 48 with annexation and Nakba, where they just went around slaughtering villages that weren't even involved.
Right, that was before Israel became an independent state, which that goes against prophecy. Shows you that they're not the real people, because once we get into our land, once we get our land back, once Yahushua returns, establishes his kingdom, there'll be no more war. There was war on the day of, the so-called Israel's independence, the week of, or it was like a full-fledged massacre on the Palestinians, okay? But he just said Nakba, that was a little bit before 1948, before they became established. Israel, that is, as an independent state. Okay, so they were already terrorizing and massacring people over there. And then once they would get those people out of the land, all right, the people that were already dwelling there, they would send Israeli or so-called Jewish people into that land to set up, all right, start whole communities.
The Suez Crisis of 56, the Six-Day War in 67, the Yom Kippur War in 73 were all started by the Israelis.
See? Exactly.
To grab
They're like the main source. A lot of those wars you've seen that happen in the Middle East, Israel was behind a lot of it. Okay?
And then also 2006, they tried to go into Lebanon. That one failed. They lost that one. And then all the incursions into Palestine with cast lead, pillar of defense, protective edge, the 2021 war, Palestine crisis, and then all in between. They've been in the Great March for Peace in 2018 and 19. Snipers would just go out and shoot people near the wall that were unarmed and protesting, and they would just go and shoot kids in the head like trophies, videotape it, put it on Telegram or Twitter. It didn't matter. So they've never known peace. October 7th didn't just come out of the blue.
At all.
I point out that 233 Palestinians had been murdered that year prior to October 7th. Thousands have been arrested without cause. That's out of the West Bank and Gaza, and there is no Hamas in the West Bank. Imagine if 233 Jews had been murdered. Just shot, just whatever. And they're not.
The first thing that would take place is that number would be inflated by 1,000%.
Yeah, it'd be 2 million or something. But if even 3 had been kidnapped or murdered, it'd be international news. It'd be like
that's an excellent
terrorists
point.
Have done.
Yeah, in 2014, I don't know if you remember, 3 settlers, not even 3 Israelis in
colonizers.
But 3 settlers in the West Bank had been kidnapped or disappeared, and they bombed Gaza for like 60 days.
And they grabbed a 16-year-old out of the West Bank, and settlers ganged up and grabbed a teenager and poured gasoline down his throat and lit him on fire from the inside out like a candle.
Yeah.
And he wasn't involved. He was just a kid. He wasn't involved in the kidnapping or anything.
Yeah.
2006, they said that their soldiers were kidnapped. They were in Lebanon and got captured. So they're in Lebanon, where they get captured in Lebanon by Hezbollah. And they said that I feel like they gone into their house and kidnapped them in Israel and brought them back to Lebanon or something.
Right.
And so they had a war over that, and they never did get those guys back because they lost the war in 2006. But if you remember, I'll set the stage for the audience that might not know, or maybe. Syria used to have troops in Lebanon. Everybody knew it. And so they staged this, they assassinated Rafik Hariri and blamed it on the Syrians. And Justin Raimondo did a good write-up about it. Syria had nothing to do with it, but Assad said, okay, we'll pull our troops out of Lebanon. And they thought, okay, now with Syria out of the way, we got a one-on-one with Hezbollah and we'll smash them. So they went in and they did not smash them. They got their ass handed to them. And they realized that we have to break Syria completely to isolate Hezbollah because supplies could still get in. And Israel's not used to fighting people who can shoot back. They're used to, hitting kids who throw rocks or just unarmed,
That's one of the reasons why they
completely.
I'm gonna go back to what he said. That's one of the reasons why they destabilized Syria. All right, because he's gonna say it.
The way we got a one-on-one with Hezbollah and we'll smash them. So they went in and they did not smash them. They got their ass handed to them, and they realized that we have to break Syria completely to isolate Hezbollah because supplies could still get in. And Israel's not used to fight.
Yeah, because they will use that route going through Syria to send their supplies. Okay.
Fighting people who can shoot back. They're used to, hitting kids who throw rocks or just unarmed, babies in an incubator that they can freeze to death. Those are the kind of opponents they like. They blew up all 36 hospitals in Gaza. They blew up aid workers, shoot the journalists, shoot the medics, blowing up food trucks. They murder people waiting for food. They destroyed their electrical power, water, all their infrastructure. They bombed people.
And so much for a peaceful people, right? God's chosen people. Yeah, that's not the case. They're Edomites, okay? And they always have been destructive. All right, it says in the scriptures how the Lord will war with Amalek from generation to generation, okay? And I want to get this scripture, Jeremiah 50, verse 45. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, that he had taken against Babylon, America, and his purposes that he had purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. That's Israel. Draw them out into this third world war. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. All right. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations, because America will get nuked, annihilated.
Their beds, like in their homes. They tell them to go to location B, and then they bomb location B. They've done every war crime there is, and they whine about a shockwave hitting a hospital. When Israel acts, like everything they accuse Hamas of.
What they do is they will do something, but when a country retaliates, they'll go ahead and point the finger. When they started it.
Doing, Israel's actually guilty of doing. It's a great theme. Of screaming in pain as they beat you. It's always guilty of their own accusations. They really do mix their military headquarters and residential zones together where they put things right under other buildings. They do use human shields. And so your initial question, like, why did you predict this war in Iran? Like, it was obvious. It's obvious the United States follows whatever Israel demands. They completely run. The media is absolutely Zionist. It's disgusting the way they reported all these conflicts. I skipped over Libya, but rinse and repeat there. And so I said, okay, well, before the ink was dry in their truce with Hezbollah, who they also attacked in 2024, I mean, that day, like within hours, here comes Al-Qaeda right on time. Here comes ISIS invading Syria. And without Russian support, it was over. Assad, the economy had been crippled by sanctions. Assad had won that war as far as he'd taken all of the southwest Syria was Syrian again. Rojava had been annexed by Kurds, and Idlib was run by Salafists, but it always had been. That's who'd lived there before the war anyway. They were nuts up there. But he couldn't afford to pay his military. He couldn't pay his officers. And they've been crippled by U.S. sanctions. They've been softened up. So when another round came, they could not last another protracted war. Whereas Al-Qaeda has all the support of the Gulf Arabs, Israel, the United States. They get all the money, all the weapons they need. There's no sanctions on ISIS. There's only on Syria. And Israel's always bombing Syria. And the point of that, when they would periodically go, and most of the time it wasn't that effective, like they wouldn't even be able to hit any targets. or they might kill 1 or 2 people, but they knew that it's going to cost about $1 million to defend this attack that they don't have. And so every time they do an air raid, it's like it costs Israel what?
Yeah, exactly. ISIS, Al Qaeda, that was all created by the United States.
Lost 2 planes in all of their air raids. Well, no, 3. One was just blown up in the air. One was crash landed on a road, and those 2 pilots died. And another one was damaged but landed. So I guess they repaired it. So that's why I said 2. But all the other ones, they started firing from further back.
Because, America, they will create these terrorist organizations, have them go do objectives, and control the narrative. Okay. Now it's a war on terrorism, and they got to go fight these people that they created and are supporting.
Fire from the Mediterranean Sea, even knowing there'd be enough warning time for most of their pilots and Popeyes and glide bombs to get intercepted, but also knowing that they're exhausting the Syrian air defense system and money and missiles that they can't afford to replace because their economy's broken. So they just do this all year, like once a month, and not one time. I mean, these are warplanes firing missiles into another sovereign nation, which is an act of war. Not one U.S. paper would even mention that it had occurred.
Right.
Why? You really got to ask that. I mean, we're so used to, obviously they're not going to, but why not? I mean, imagine if Syria had taken warplanes and fired them into Israel and it not being on the news.
I'm just trying to, speed this up. All right.
There's no way that would happen. They did it over and over again. They softened that up, and they handed that country over to Al Qaeda. Similar thing in Libya. That was a functional North African country that's now run by apes. And so essentially, just the kind of people that would shit in their own hand and call it free lunch. Fucking room temperature IQ, religious fanatics. That the CIA. This is a longer story, but the CIA and co have been fostering cannon fodder with financed hyper-radicalized madrasas and imams intentionally to create this rent a terrorist. Like here we've got a ready supply of morons to go throw against the wall to use in their imperial escapades. And Saudi Arabia has been right up there with the United States in that too, with sponsoring everything from Al-Shabaab to Boko Haram, which they're just idiots and they cause problems all over Africa. But they've got deep pockets. You see it now in the war in Sudan. The UAE is sponsoring the rapid forces with Hamidi, prolonging a civil war that isn't going anywhere, but it ensures the flow of Sudanese gold to the UAE. 90% of the gold being smuggled is going to the United Arab Emirates. I mean, Hamidi and his family members all have accounts in the UAE. So that's what that's about. These Gulf Arabs sponsor terrorism all over the world. So everything that they actually do is what Iran is accused of doing. They'll say it's for Israeli security. It's not for the Israeli security. Israelis the one preemptively attacking all their neighbors and actually assassinating the negotiators. The people who were trying to negotiate for peace, Israel murdered them. And they bombed the Iranian consulate in Syria. Remember this. This is what started promise.
I'm going to stop right there. If you want to watch the rest, here's the title. All right, he goes in, he goes in. I highly advise you watch this video, okay? So with that, Shalom.
One and promise two. Back